enforcement. We're in a highly, we have Whitefield up there close to Milton, so it's a huge number that's our clientele there. I would say that, a lot of those are kids that get transferred in from other states, and they have no clue that they can't purchase a firearm in the state of Florida. They come in and they think they can purchase a shotgun to go hunting or a bolt-action rifle to go deer hunting, and they get here and they're very confused that they can't do that. So it's very upsetting that these young men and women can go sacrifice their lives for our country, but then when they're home, they're not old enough or responsible enough to protect themselves or to even go hunting, like I said. So it's pretty ridiculous that we think they're not responsible when it comes to everyday life, but they are responsible enough to put their life on the line for this country. I will also say that the ATF makes us turn around gun traces to them, report back any gun traces to them within 24 hours, but the fact that the government can't give information back on our customers within a 3-day period so they can purchase a firearm is pretty ridiculous as well.
Mr. Herrera, you speak to a very broad audience. How are young Americans reacting to these calls to raise the age beyond 18 to be able to purchase firearms?
You see it a lot every day. I get messages or comments or things from people who are, just entering the funnel of being interested in the Second Amendment and gun culture and things. So whether it's movies like John Wick or video games or whatever, they're getting interested in firearms, which is, the entrance to the funnel to understanding more about the Second Amendment, the Constitution, everything. But they're worried, they're concerned. Let's say they're 15, 16, and they just want to get a shotgun or a rifle when they turn 18. That in those years between now and then, they won't be able to. And I know Florida has passed that law that you guys are working on repealing that takes away gun rights for those under 21. We do not have that in Texas, and I'm from San Antonio, so Military City, USA, you see it all the time. There's a very heavy Air Force presence there. You go to gun stores all across that city, and there's 18, 19, 20-year-old Air Force members that are in there, and they're excited, and they're buying firearms, and it's not pandemonium. There's really no problem with it. So the fact that it was passed in Florida is a travesty, and the fact that they're trying to pass it nationwide is insane.
Dr. Upton, it's your bill. I'll give you the final word before yielding to the screen.
Well, thank you, Congressman. Those are all excellent points. I want to leave you both with some words that I gave on the floor of the Florida House, because you understand the bill to restore gun rights to our 18, 19, and 20-year-olds, so you understand that was a very contentious bill. And what we were getting into when it came up for debate in the House. And of course, Congresswoman, we have a supermajority in Tallahassee, so we get to do pretty much whatever we want to do, thank God. Seeing majority Republican. So as we're debating the bill, a lot of my colleagues across the aisle who were sitting on the back row, you know what we were expecting that day. Everything was pop. The tissue papers were out, the tears were crying. So I'm going to leave you with my words from the floor of the House that day, because I was the only Republican who stood up and said the word pop. Because there were heroes that day at Parkland High School. There was one kid in particular who was a 15-year-old who, when the shooter was outside in the hallway, just raining holy hell, there was a 15-year-old kid who held his classroom door shut. And he took a barrage of bullets to his body, but he kept that door closed so that killer couldn't get in that classroom and kill hundreds of other children. So that 15-year-old was forever known as the hero of Parkland. So others are crying about how we have to restrict gun rights and take gun out of the right to college. Everybody's got this hero who are out and let me over the chance to say it's now been 5 years. 7 years ago in the legislature, look at this he accomplished. They told him that, if you heard, he got released. He didn't get the death penalty. Can you believe that? So he now gets 3 months at a time for the rest of his life, courtesy of the Florida taxpayer. And one of that hero is part of the courageous 16-year-old, the children who are very brave believe that when now it's been 20 years later, that 15-year-old is now 20 and will be another year before the hero of conflict can purchase a firearm for his own safety, for his own protection. And to me, that's the worst travesty of all. That's not how we treat heroes in America.
Carson, great point.
Until you realize that's all the United States of America is, a fucking business.
Is that this country knows the name of Nicholas Cruz and David Hogg. Does not know the hero of Parkland's name, 15-year-old that is now 20 years old. I think that's tragic. And again, as a teenager who at 16 years old was a victim of a student who was mentally ill and brought back to our school on lockdown. That's to reality that free zones are the most dangerous places in America. Schools where children should not be sitting ducks, losing their lives, sitting in a man with that wants to harm children and teachers and school administrators and coaches. And the whole reason is Joe Biden. That needs to be done. I would encourage you to make sure that the hero of Parkland, Florida, at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, David's name should be the name that our country knows. David Hogg, that is a paid political activist that works as hard as possible to bring all of you to be legal and would be returned simply because we use our Second Amendment vote against Nicholas Cruz, who gets to, like you said, three meals and a cup for his taxpayers. That's a shame. Something that is personal to me. This week, there's a man in New York that is being sentenced guilty for planning to murder me. And he has been the judge said he pled guilty in his trial. And waiting for his sentencing trial because it's a pretty bad feeling to know that there's someone in New York who pled guilty planning to murder you but got sent home by the judge. And then traveled here in Florida. And to do research on security to protect the death threats that I get some of the most death threats as members of Congress, not only from just Durant, the thing that they all murder me in New York, but also a very particular sector of people, the Department of trans activists. These are the people that want to support genital mutilation of children in our country, which are totally against. That's how to do a lot of research to find out where my government is coming to Florida. You get a lot of, not only me, you get a lot of tourists, you get a lot of families that travel to Florida coming here, and my colleague, Congressman Gates, and I fully support national reciprocity. I think our colleague, Congressman Richard Johnson, has built a policy where to go back to Washington about getting that passed. It should be passed. It shouldn't happen that you have to do so much research when your gun rights are, when you're traveling. So just real quick, Mr. Bregman, am I allowed to carry a gun in the state of Florida? Permit in Georgia, constitutional carry in Georgia. I know y'all are about to get it to Florida, so what's the deal?
Defer to my friend Chris Smith on that. Chris bill goes into effect on July 1, I believe.
So you can carry with your Georgia permit and has reciprocity in the state of Florida. Without a Georgia permit, you wouldn't be able to carry until the bill goes into effect on July 1.
Okay, yeah, well, thank you very much for that.
Make believe, understand, faith, hope.
And I think it's the worst day for everyone. Pistol rights is extremely important. So pistol rights, as everyone knows, has been the
in God you trust is you trusting in the government. You eat 3 times a day because of the government. Everything you do is because it was taught to you. But the natural order to be in, you're not doing. Because the natural order to be in is you need to always be thinking.
It's okay, it's legal. But think about this, they tell women, usually they advise women, hey, you should have a shotgun. Okay, this is the best home defense weapon. And a shotgun's pretty heavy if you've ever carried one. So if you don't have that much upper muscle strength to lift up a shotgun, then that can be a problem. But the pistol race is fantastic.
Live in.
I'm a big fan of the AR-15. The great thing about it is that you get as many bullets as you want. And if somebody's coming in your home to murder you or your children, guess what? You can have as many bullets as you need to defend yourself. And I think that's the big deal. But the greatest threat, Mr. Parsons, I want to talk to you about this. The greatest threat in our country is they don't get up and kill people, do they, by themselves? No. But it's the radical leftist group. And you face them all the time. I faced them before I came to Congress as an activist, a gun rights activist. But you face them all the time being the executive vice president of a group that defends gun rights. When the group that I want to talk about is the one that endorses the director of the ATF. That's Everytown for Gun Safety, who was funded by $50 billion from Michael Bloomberg. Can you expand on the assault to American gun rights by these heavily funded radical left gun-grabbing groups?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated, but at the end of the day, it's all about money. I mean, and what you see in the gun rights community a lot of times is just people giving, like my organization, $35 a year or whatever to join. We have Soros, we have Bloomberg, we have this other guy, a couple years ago, spent $100 million or something. But yeah, then you come testing, you can help people, you can have activists, you can get the minds out from their, teas and yoga sessions and have them to the Congress. And I know this is something you care about a lot. You see the really was on Capitol Hill all the time. And we see the same thing in state legislatures, and a lot of times, senators can get intimidated by that. And, they take the same that percentage to see is that when politicians fear those people, they're going to vote their way, and it's not going to go their way. I hope they're on the next side, but they have money, and they have resources, and they have people, and it's lawsuits, lawsuits that not only my organization, but other gun rights organizations are involved in at the state level, federal level, etc. The other side typically is going to have money, or their attorneys who may work for the feds, who store everything, or whatever. And I don't know if that's exactly the answer that you were looking for, but yeah, I mean, $100 billion, $50 billion, whatever, is spent on political ads, spent on flyers, door to door, money. And their stuff is more actual terms than it is actual people. It's just money. So if you have any billionaires, we'd be happy to talk to them.
I think what I wanted people to understand is how organized the left is. And like you said, it's more abstract terms than actual people. And how well they're organized to work to law your small business owners, you own businesses, you have families, you support families through your businesses, and you should be able to do that doing legal selling firearms legally. But they also work hard to take away the gun rights of Americans, and they're heavily funded. And speaking of someone like David Hogg, who is funded through a Michael Bloomberg gun group that created March for Life, and I witnessed it myself, where David Hogg comes to Washington, D.C. with attorneys. They have folders, binders of information. They have groups with them coordinated. They have appointments going to these senators and congressmen's offices, and they're there completely backed by millions of dollars to take away political for them. And it's to take away your freedoms, and that was what I was referring to. Congressman Yates, I'll yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I wanted to further probe the dynamic Mr. Schuler spoke about, where the ATF really converts from being a helpful entity to try to get people in compliance to trying to get you out of compliance. And it seemed in your testimony that there were specific instances where the bad faith nature of that was apparent. Telling jokes about you, kind of parading within your store to try to send a message to customers. What do you think has caused that dynamic? Because we want every agency of government to be on the side of our citizens, not to be adversarial to our law-abiding citizens. We've got that pretty good on the record for Mr. Schuler, but I wanted you to address that specific point.
In their career, if they had on their record that they put a profile store like ours, we're very active on social media, we have a lot of followers on there. If they would put a store like ours, business, it would look good on their record for.
So you think it's a scouting contest?
Yes, essentially a scouting contest. Yes, and it seems to me that the other dealers that are having problems in the area are also high-profile dealers as well.
Mr. Herrera, is that something you've observed nationwide with the ATF trying to target people to sort of claim credit for a shutdown rather than getting credit to work together in a collaborative way to encourage compliance?
For sure, I will put a caveat on that too, because I have FFLs in North Carolina and Texas, and it's been my experience at least that usually the local folks, the local ATF field agents are usually trying to be helpful. They're usually just trying to ensure compliance and answer questions and things. Maybe I've just gotten lucky, but that's been my experience. The problem starts when you start incorporating the feds in DC, the DC offices, because once you get those people or out-of-state people who have no connection to the locals or the area, that's where you start having people who have political agendas, and especially with the zero tolerance rule, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, now there is a penalty for the agents as well. If they fail to catch small clerical errors and they don't report it, if somebody comes back behind them and finds one later that they should have caught, that agent can also lose their career. So now they have pensions on them, and that is all directly top down from DC.
I want to thank you all so much for joining us today. I want to particularly thank Mr. Schuler and Mr. Smith, who, through the normal course of constituent requests for information and for advocacy from our office, have contacted us on a number of matters through the years, and I'm very grateful for both of you for putting us to work for you, putting our team members to work for you. And if the folks in Northwest Florida and Georgia throughout the country are wondering, where do we go from here? How do we take this information that we've anchored in this testimony and put it to use? The appropriate, what Congressman Green and I know is that we can funnel our legislation to send a message to uproot the authorities of these entities, but ultimately it comes down to the money. That if money is continuously sent to entities, it is fungible, and it gets used in a variety of, at times, unlawful ways, and ways that were never contemplated. And we got testimony regarding the pistol race rule on that particular point. And so we head back to Washington armed with this information to try to constrain resources that would otherwise be used to put people out of business and to harm our fellow Americans. But there is another reform that Congressman Green and I fought for that's really a renewal of our oversight tools in the Congress. And it's a little wonky. It's called the Holman Rule. But the Holman Rule that Nancy Pelosi
makes sense with true change.
but that Speaker McCarthy, to
Once
his
you
great
start
credit,
thinking for yourself and using common sense,
allows us to be able to
shit
target
will
the
change.
salary of
Because
any
right now,
bureaucrat in the
common
federal
sense is
government
just not
and
common.
to specifically force a vote on defunding a particular salary. And as Congresswoman Green and I leave this hearing today, she and I are sending
Literally,
a
the sheep were
to
just
the
going along
chairwoman
to get
of
along.
the House Appropriations Committee, the Chairwoman Kay Granger, in which we express our intent to file a Holman Rule
Make believe,
on the
understand,
budget
faith,
to zero
hope.
out the salary of the ATF Director, Mr. Diedelbach. and we'll be transmitting that letter today.
Just 5 words keep so many guinea pigs, keep so many willing participants not thinking for themselves. Lazy
Some of the
asses.
transcript and records from our constituents. We deeply thank you.
Believer.
If you are in attendance today and you're interested in other field hearings that we host on veterans issues, on security issues, military issues, please sign up at gate.trump.gov to be able to get notices regarding those so that we can get your feedback as well. On the screen, I'll go to you for any closing remarks before we start.
Thank you, Congressman Gates, and I'll just add on one last thing. We need to make sure that we all have your support and that Washington hears from you. That's the best thing you can do is make sure your voices are heard. And we need to make sure that we can abolish the ATF Act. That would be great. And then we can stop this radical, unconstitutional abuse towards FFL owners and dealers and also American Second Amendment rights. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to Northwest Florida again. I know Georgia loves her, but I always tell my colleague she would make a great Florida woman. So thank you to the Volusia County Commission. Thank you to our terrific law enforcement officers who kept everyone safe today. The formal portion of our meeting is concluded and we are adjourned.
ATF and public FBI. Both organizations become legal. We got police.
In 2022, Congressman Matt Gaetz continued to make headlines and rival social media moments in the House of Representatives. The Trump-supporting conservative sits on the House Judiciary Committee and continued his streak of full-throated opposition to President Biden, Speaker Pelosi, high government spending, so-called woke policies, and alleged DOJ overreach. Gaetz' House floor speeches routinely excoriated the agenda imposed by one-party Democratic rule in Washington. He also had frequent clashes with Democrats and witnesses within the Judiciary Committee. Gaetz has become a figure of extreme controversy on the left, but his stature on the right has grown, with his friendships with
Fuck all this bullshit. This is a grown fucking man who's a fucking criminal. He ain't supposed to be getting this special fucking treatment because his daddy is the president.
I presume the gentleman yields back. And I recognize the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Gates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The American people are fatigued and frustrated by rising prices, by not being able to get the goods that they want or need. And we've had a Biden administration that has printed money like it's going out of style. It's declared a war on work with vaccine mandates by paying people to stay home. In some circumstances, encouraging school closures or allowing them so that people are forced to stay home. They've backed lockdown strategies that have killed restaurants, causing more people to increase demands at grocery stores. And what you're being told by someone in this hearing is that the reason that we are fatigued and frustrated at the grocery store is because of big food, not because of big government. And that's an assumption that I certainly think deserves challenging. I guess my first question is for Mr. St. Honest. Have the lockdown policy choices increased grocery demand in a way that might have spurred some of these challenges that consumers are facing?
Thank you for that question. I do want to take a moment to agree with the other witness, Mr. Mann, that policy does raise prices. So I would second that opinion. Thanks for that question. That it did. Part of the impact was just the mix of products. People tend to buy higher priced cuts when they're cooking at home. Also, cafeteria restaurants might optimize lower prices. And then part of it was also simply supply disruption. So there was a long period during the pandemic where there were too many cows, beef. We also saw similar dynamics in lumber. So there have been disruptions really across the economy. Other point is that inflation itself tends to create a sort of illusion of profit. Many firms will book the goods they sell at the purchase price. Right now, you could argue they should book it at the replacement price, but at any rate, a certain amount of apparent profit during inflation is an illusion. So there are a number of factors either related to the lockdown during the pandemic or to this inflation itself.
And in your research, have you looked at the extent to which the policy choices that have disincentivized work has impacted the supply chain and the amount of folks that are able to move product and onboard product and shelve product for our military?
Absolutely. That's precisely what's been happening with the benefits, delinking benefits from work. That does not take benefits out of business. It takes warehouse workers, retail workers, transportation workers out.
So the worst thing that the Biden administration has done to the workforce are felt most in some of these areas that impact our food. Isn't that right?
That's exactly right.
Now, one of the
Why not drug test everyone that works there? They were supposed to be drug free any fucking way. So test everyone that works there. If it would have been me, I'd have been in jail by now.
Congress, we only have jurisdiction over what happens in our country. If we were to do that, what impact would it have, if any, on global consolidation? Because I seem to see that particularly Chinese investors are consolidating globally, and if we were to deconstruct American companies, would that make us less competitive with the Chinese market?
Yes, that's a great point, and that would be the tendency.
And I have to say there's a specific circumstance, Mr. Chairman, that deeply concerns me. So while we may not get bipartisan agreement for a total moratorium on mergers and acquisitions, the Smithfield Foods case study is one where I think we could get agreement. In that case, Smithfield Foods Inc. sold to China. They sold to the WH Group of China. Now they're a wholly owned subsidiary. So the largest pork producer in the world, based in Virginia, that runs a lot of the pork brands that American consumers are familiar with, is Chinese. And I don't think that's good for our fellow Americans. I don't think that makes us more resilient. So maybe if we don't stop Americans from buying American companies, we can at least stop the Chinese from consolidating and improving their advantage over us. Mr. St. Ange, the regulatory environment has persistently put pressures on food prices. If the USDA allowed more direct consumer for smaller, more sustainable, more environmentally friendly farms, would that help people access more locally grown food at a lower price?
Yes, it absolutely would. That's one of the areas that the industry could really benefit from congressional action is making it easier to enter the industry, particularly for small businesses. We've got a couple witnesses here to represent that group. So without a doubt, whether it's making inspection regimes more logical with more input, whether it's waters and fuels, there are a number of environmental rules that cause risks or costs for growers, and so absolutely being proactive in that area would help.
It would seem the gentleman has expired.
The gentleman from Florida,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I seek to address the House for 1 minute and revise some remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, while the Biden administration, the media, and many in Congress beat the drums of war for Ukraine, there is a far more significant threat to our nation accelerating rapidly close to home. Argentina, a critical nation and economy in the Americas, has just lashed itself to the Chinese Communist Party by signing on to the One Belt, One Road initiative. The cost to China was $23.7 billion. A mere fraction of a rounding error when compared to the trillions of dollars our country has spent trying to build democracies out of sand and blood in the Middle East. China buying influence and infrastructure in Argentina to collaborate on space and nuclear energy is a direct challenge to the Monroe Doctrine, and far more significant to American security than our latest NATO flirtation in the plains of Eastern Europe. China is a rising power. Russia is a declining power. Let us sharpen our focus so that we do not join them in that eventual fate. I go back. There's no right in this country when the Tinder swindler is treating people better than our own government's treating us. When I ran for Congress, I thought that the DOJ, the FBI, the CDC, those were supposed to be the good guys. Simpler days. I was extorted by a former DOJ official
The FBI saw one of their own lawyers change evidence to frame President Trump before a secret court. They're cheating worse than the Russian figure skating team over there at the Hoover Building. And the CDC, they wanted the powers of the CIA and ended up with the credibility of CNN. Now, Joe Biden and even some who have taken the stage tell us that defending freedom in Ukraine has costs for Americans. First of all, costs are going up, so that should be a red flag right there. Also, what about freedom here in this country? What about our leaders actually standing up for freedom and liberty in America? Why should Americans have to pay the cost of freedom elsewhere when our own leaders stand up for our freedom here? And by the way, Washington spent your money and took your freedom away anyway. That's why we have higher costs and fewer choices today. But now you gotta foot the bill for Ukraine? Endure more pain? We still got pain from Afghanistan misadventures that we still have to deal with. I'm not for sending Americans to Ukraine. Except maybe one. If Russia wanted to destabilize Ukraine, Putin didn't need to send tanks. We could have just sent Dr. Fauci. My constituents fear Dr. Fauci more than some modern incarnation of Dr. Strangelove, and it's easy to see why. My parents did nuclear fallout drills in school over missiles that fortunately never arrived. Today, students are drilled to wear masks over a virus that threatens their overall health less than the mask itself. We are retarding social emotional learning, empathy, and caring. We are raising a generation of little sociopaths who will act more like the Menendez brothers. That's a lot scarier than post-Omicron COVID. Indeed, we should fire Fauci, but the oversight shouldn't stop there. My vision for Republican control of Congress is every committee gets an investigation to run. The Armed Services Committee should be looking into the botched Afghanistan withdrawal. The Energy and Commerce Committee should break up big tech. The Agriculture Committee should stop big food from being consolidated under the power of the Chinese Communist Party. The Intelligence Committee should blow up FISA. The Judiciary Committee should stop the DOJ from targeting political opponents, whether they are parents, whether they are falsely labeled as extremists, or whether they are lawmakers engaged in the oversight of the Department of Justice. The Transportation Committee should not be debating whether or not roads and bridges are racist. They should solve supply chain issues. They oversee the ports, don't they? Why is it that Americans can get their heroin delivered faster than a futon from IKEA? The Foreign Affairs, he should stop us from having so many foreign affairs. They cost our nation too much in treasure and in the blood of our bravest patriots. We don't have to give other countries money to hate us. They will probably do it for free. Wouldn't it be nice if the Natural Resources Committee actually cared about the development of American natural resources? I wish our media reported as much about the Keystone XL as they do Nord Stream 2. Homeland Security. It is not enough to finish the walls. Biden has let millions of people into our country illegally. We need internal enforcement of our immigration laws and deportations for people who did not come here with permission. We gotta find every one of those Biden flights that dropped off illegal immigrants at our military bases and in our communities, and we ought to track those people down like they were at the Capitol on January 6th.
The gentlelady of back left versus Mr. Gates, seek recognition.
Move to strike last word.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, if you didn't like critical race theory in your corporate training, if you didn't like critical race theory in your kids' schools, this is critical race theory with a gun and a badge and the power to arrest. And if my colleagues on the left are so worried
If you'd have got
about
rid of Hillary
domestic
Clinton when you
terrorism,
were supposed to,
maybe they ought to be establishing new authorities.
if you'd have put
FBI,
Hillary Clinton in
DOJ,
jail when you were
into the
supposed to,
BLM
none of this
riots
shit would have never
2020.
happened.
Maybe they ought to have new authorities to go after Antifa and leftist agitators. But no. It's about white supremacy today. My concern is increasingly about the terrorists who are in our country who are crossing the border.
United States of America
I was just in
Corporation
Yuma,
wouldn't be in
Arizona with my
shambles.
colleague Mr. Biggs, and we were briefed by Customs and Border Patrol
Shambles.
about the known terrorists who are crossing our border each and every week, each and every month. And the majority here is more concerned about chasing the ghosts of white supremacy than dealing with those real and actual threats. The Attorney General of the United States came to this committee, misled us about the authorities that were being used to target American parents, and instead of giving the Attorney General an invitation to come back and explain himself, clarify, give us comfort that that's not occurring, we're giving the Department of Justice more authorities to continue the corrupt work that we see that they've already been engaged in. This bill grows government. It gives more authorities to a corrupt, weaponized, politicized Department of Justice and FBI, and it gaslights the targeting of white people. This is particularly problematic in our military. I would note that this legislation has a grave and negative impact on every single American wearing the uniform right now in our military. It has them all concerned that if they liked the wrong meme, shared the wrong joke 7 years ago, that their career could be ruined, that their patriotism could be tarnished. I get these concerns from my district most frequently from the units that are minority units. Because in our military, we try to train everyone to believe that you go through the same systems. You develop the same sense of common purpose. And now when we sick the FBI on the DOD and on our military to try to smear them as domestic terrorists or white supremacists, it erodes unit cohesion. It negatively impacts readiness. I have noticed that the parliamentarian referred this legislation not only to our committee but to the Armed Services Committee as well. And I would implore the leadership of the Armed Services Committee, do not grant this bill a waiver. It has a significant impact on the readiness of our fighting force, and if this bill is not favorably referred out to the Armed Services Committee, it should not go to the floor. It must be given hearings there to see its full and damaging effect. Increasingly, the left wants to use federal law enforcement to target Americans. We saw that in the Russia hoax. We see that in the ongoing FISA abuses that the committee will not bring forward. We saw it with the targeting of parents who attended school board meetings, and now they're drawing a bead on our military. I thought about amending this bill to include requirements that BLM and Antifa and leftist agitators also be analyzed. But honestly, I'm not going to offer that amendment because I sincerely believe that the gravest threat to our country is the inward turning of exquisite national security authorities that we intended for terrorists in faraway lands against our own people. And my friends, now you are in power, and so you are trying to weaponize these institutions against those who you consider to be antithetical to your worldview. But
what do we pay the FBI for? Our tax money. What do we pay the ATF for? Our tax money.
The FBI used to essentially be a white supremacist institution. They targeted Martin Luther King Jr. They targeted Marcus Garvey. They targeted Malcolm X with some of these very authorities. And so I would just caution you against giving the power to an entity to ruin lives and to weaponize the apparatus of government with concepts that we never intended to be used on our soil. And if we do that, I think we'll have a more just system for everyone. We categorically reject white supremacy. It has no role in our country and our lives. But it's almost like we're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy, because when we go accuse every American of being a white supremacist, I think then we lose the ability to accurately target the acts of violence that you've correctly identified and that our existing laws can deal with. I yield back.
Well, at this time, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Gates.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank my gracious colleague revealed that he would not hold the same position on this piece of legislation. Madam Speaker, when our fellow Americans get a cell phone contract, when they get cables and they get internet, they are subject to forced arbitration. Virtually every single American lives under a forced arbitration provision today, and most do not know it. Do we really think that people have the ability to go negotiate against AT&T or Comcast, or in many cases, big businesses that exploit a great deal of Americans? Of course they don't. And so what that means is that we have a two-tier system of dispute resolution. Regular folks got to show up in Article 3 courts with taxpayers' fund to resolve their disputes. And meanwhile, oftentimes big business gets a concierge lane to be able to resolve matters in their favor, and oftentimes to preclude the resolution of a matter at all. Think about instances of wage theft, where big businesses can take just a little bit of money and not pay their employees, or an individual employee would have a very hard time getting a rule. Here and making a case on that, and so they need the class action tool to be able to get redress for their grievances. The forced arbitration provisions that impair so many of our fellow Americans limit that class action tool. And then people end up getting really screwed in the process. I support the legislation. I'm proud to be the Republican lead, and it's my belief that if Article 3 courts, funded by the taxpayers, are good enough for the rest of us, they ought to be good enough for big business. I thank the gentleman for his indulgence, Mr. Chairman. I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record of this committee the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop, which I'm in possession of.
Anybody New Testament? Sure are many trees up. Crunchy and midi. Four. Beautiful. So.
I'm not.
There's no objection to that.
So I can't say no objection. I've never had a little objection.
Pending further investigation.
What's the basis of that objection?
It's a unanimous consent request, and I object that
I have a subsequent question. Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the receipt
may very well
from the Mac shop.
it may very well be entered into the record after we look at it further.
Mr. Chairman, I'm glad this is pending.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the receipt from the Department of
Chairman, this is am I next, or
Without objection, Ms. Decker.
thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Assistant Director Brunswick.
So where is the laptop?
Sir, I'm not here to talk about the laptop. I'm here to talk about the FBI cyber program.
You are the Assistant Director of FBI Cyber. I want to know where Hunter Biden's laptop is. Where is it?
Sir, I don't know that answer.
That is astonishing to me. Has FBI Cyber assessed whether or not Hunter Biden's laptop could be a point of vulnerability, allowing America's enemies to hurt our country?
Sir, the FBI cyber program is based off of what's codified in Title 18, Section 1030 of Code, which talks about computer intrusions, right, using nefarious intent.
But you've talked about passwords here. I mean, Hunter Biden's password on his laptop was Hunter02. He drops it off at a repair store. I'm holding the receipt from Max Computer Repair, where in December 2019, they turned over this laptop to the FBI. And what now you're telling me right here is that as the Assistant Director of FBI Cyber, you don't know where this is after it was turned over to you 3 years ago.
Yes, sir, that's an accurate statement.
How are Americans supposed to trust that you can protect us from the next colonial pipeline if it seems that you can't locate a laptop that was given to you 3 years ago from the first family, potentially creating vulnerabilities for our country?
Sir, it's not in the purview of my investigative responsibilities.
But that is shocking that you would, as the Assistant Director of Cyber, know whether or not there are international business deals kickbacks, shakedowns that are on this laptop that would make the first family suspect to some sort of compromise. Mr. Assistant Director, have you assessed whether or not the first family is compromised as a result of the Hunter Biden laptop?
Sir, as a representative of the FBI's cyber program, is not in the realm of my
What do
responsibility.
we pay them for, man?
Questions that you're asking.
What do we pay this asshole for? What do we pay this asshole for?
Whether or not the laptop treats a point of vulnerability?
Sir, we have multiple lines of investigative responsibility in the FBI. They're all available on public source.
I would think you'd know this, right? I mean, I would think that if the president's son, who does international business deals, referencing the now president with the Chinese, with Ukrainians, I mean, have you assessed whether or not the Hunter Biden laptop gives Russia the ability to harm our country?
Sir, again, we can do this back and forth for the next couple minutes. I don't have any information about the Hunter Biden laptop or the investigation.
Should you? I mean, you're the assistant director of FBI Cyber.
By the block and line chart, no, sir, I should not.
Who should we put in that chair to ask questions about this laptop that FBI has had for 3 years?
Sir, I'm not in a position to make a recommendation or we should say.
So you don't have it, you don't know who has it, you don't know where it is. You're the assistant director. Earlier, you talked about whether or not you were the Grant Hill or the Christian Laettner. It sounds like you're the Chris Webber trying to call a timeout when you don't have one. So, I mean, who is it? Do you even know who has it? Do you know who we should put in that chair to ask these questions to?
No, sir, I don't know.
Well, could you find out and tell us? You're going to have to give us briefings, thanks to Mr. Lou and Mr. Massey's question about whether or not the FBI was taking a $5 million test drive from the Pegasus system that was being used to target people in politics, people in government, people in the media, people in American life. So will you commit to give us a briefing as the Assistant Director of FBI Cyber as to where the laptop is, whether or not it's a point of vulnerability, whether or not the American people should wonder whether or not the first family is compromised?
Sir, I'd be happy to take your request back to our office.
Gosh, I mean, will you advocate for that briefing? You will?
I will be happy to take your request back to FBI headquarters.
Well, do you believe that is a briefing that the Congress is worthy of having? I guess.
I'm not going to answer that question. I'm here to talk. The invitation says oversight of the FBI cyber division. It does not say anything.
Well, right, but I mean, this is a cyber asset. This is a point of vulnerability. If there are passwords, if there are business deals, if there are references to things that could harm our country, like you can't even sit here right now and say that you know that there's not a point of vulnerability. Maybe there are other crimes, maybe there are tax issues or whatever. But as it relates to is the first family sufficient cyber infrastructure to protect? You don't even know if they're compromised.
Mr. Gates is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Wallander, we're not sending the 82nd Airborne into Ukraine, right?
Now, China currently is setting up this
And regime change in Russia is not the policy of the United States, is it? And God forbid, if the Russians use chemical weapons, we would not respond by using chemical weapons against the Russian people, right?
Correct.
So why does the president keep speaking out against U.S. policy?
Congressman, the President has made clear that he has not changed U.S. policy of regime change.
No, why does he speak against it?
That he is appalled by the wars, as I think we all are, of what Russia is wreaking in Ukraine.
How could it not confuse our allies and our fellow Americans to have the president saying the exact opposite of what you just correctly defined as U.S. policy?
My understanding from allies is that they value U.S. leadership. They are confident in American commitment to the NATO alliance, in particular, the President's words that the United States will deter Russian attack against NATO and defend every inch of NATO territory.
And Love Shopping was Brian Colesberg.
China is building their nuclear weapons background. And they left it the dark of night.
Well, China has been much more aggressive in these last 2 years. We know that. Surveillance balloons, a spy balloon that traveled across the country. That's what I want to ask you. Were you aware of this kind of surveillance program underway
fascinating, but it doesn't get to the question of speaking directly against our policies. Does the Department of Defense assess that the president is likely going forward to speak against U.S. policy on other matters?
Congressman, I can't speak to that. I don't believe that there's any such assessment.
Maybe do we have a plan in place for the next moment, right? Because this didn't happen once, it didn't happen twice, it happened 3 times on like highly consequential stuff, like regime change and chemical weapons and sending our service members into Ukraine. And so I sort of wonder whether or not we have to have contingency plans for a president who seems to be a little confused on those matters. And you're saying there is no such contingency plan?
I'm telling you, Congressman, that the Department of Defense leadership is focused on sustaining and advancing American national security policy of this administration.
Is the Department of Defense leadership frustrated by the president's statements against U.S. policy?
Congressman, I think that is an inappropriate characterization of what the
question. Is the department leadership frustrated? Because I'm characterizing. I'm trying to ascertain how hard this job must be to get our force posture aligned, to get our information operations that Mr. Garamendi asked about in line, when you've got a president who seems to be misaligned on these key questions.
Congressman, I can only speak for myself. I think it's appropriate, and you have a right to ask the question. And so, speaking for myself,
Absolutely. You can't.
I am.
If you ask a question, you got to give her at least 5 seconds to say something before you interrupt. Go ahead.
I am not frustrated. I feel privileged and honored to serve the American people and to serve this president and this administration.
Are you aware of any other officials at the department that are frustrated by the president's misstatements of policy?
I am not.
General Mueller, hypersonic weapon systems have been used for the first time in this conflict, and the committee has received a number of briefings regarding how far behind our country is in some of these capabilities. How should UCOM think about hypersonics from a defensive capability, seeing what we've seen on the battlefield?
Congressman, that's a great question, and it's all about strategic speed and posture. And every day I've got to find a way to adjust our indications and warnings and adjust our command and control and feedback to accommodate not just a Mach 1 target, but a target that now operate at Mach 4.5. And if we're not doing this in 2022, we're getting way behind. So the efforts are there. We find out what the capabilities are. We find out what the locations are. We examine the different courses of action of where these systems can be utilized. And now we have to adjust fire with our IW systems and our ISR to make sure that we have the best probability of capturing the potential strike. And if we're not adjusting every second of the day, we're making a mistake. And it's a constant adjustment in UCOM as well as South
Speaking of those adjustments, because I only have a moment left, will we see an adjustment in the president's proposed budget or to accommodate our updated thinking about hypersonics now that we've seen them used in Europe?
Congressman, we will.
That's very helpful. I yield back. Terry Austin, why should American taxpayers fund lectures at the National Defense University that promote socialism as a strategy to combat China?
It's the National Defense University is an academic institution, and I don't know of any such lecture.
Well, that's surprising because it was widely reported. The National Defense University has Thomas Piketty come, and this was the title of his lecture, Responding to China, the Case for Global Justice and Democratic Socialism. So now that you know that they did this, would you agree that embracing socialism is not an effective strategy to combat China?
Well, I certainly don't agree with embracing socialism.
So that means we're not going to do this. We're not going to let the guy say 4 words and start talking and got to go. We're just not going to hold time, Mr. Jones. Yeah, but you also have to be fair to the witnesses. No, I got the answer. I wanted to follow up. My follow-up question is if we don't embrace it, then I guess why did the National Defense University put out a statement? Again, this is funded by U.S. taxpayers, saying in this talk, Mr. Piketty will argue that the right answer lies in ending Western arrogance and promoting a new emancipatory and egalitarian horizon on a global scale, a new form of democratic and participatory, ecological, and post-colonial socialism. So why would we invite people we don't agree with to evangelize views and values that we don't share at the National Defense University when we should be learning strategy about how to combat our enemies and make assessments that are accurate?
And we do learn a lot about strategy and about the military and about joint force development, and so that is our focus in these institutions. I don't know what the context of this particular or content of this particular
Mr. Secretary, I've shared with you the context. The context wasn't better understand socialism so we can defeat it. The context wasn't learn about it so that we can offer countermeasures. The concept was that it's time for socialism. And the reason I know that's the context is because the lecture was pulled from a book written by Thomas Piketty entitled Time for Socialism. And I just can't help but notice.
And so your
I control the time.
Your question.
You guys have been blowing a lot of calls lately on matters of strategy, Mr. Secretary. You guys told us that Russia couldn't lose. You told us that the Taliban couldn't immediately win. And so I guess I'm wondering, what of the $773 billion that you're requesting today is going to help you make assessments that are accurate in the face of so many blown calls?
You've seen what's in our budget. You've seen how the budget matches the strategy, and so I'll let that speak for itself.
Well, I mean, I've also seen that we're behind, Secretary. We're behind in hypersonics. We failed to deter Russia. Last year,
So what do you mean we're behind in hypersonics?
Who's ahead in hypersonics?
How do you make that assessment?
I don't know. I make that assessment because China is fielding hypersonic weapons systems and we are still developing them. I make that assessment because Russia actually used them. By the way, your own people brief us that we are behind and that China is winning. Are you aware of the briefings we get on hypersonics?
I am certainly aware of briefings that we provide to Congress.
It's not just the hypersonic, it's all over the world. It's in Taiwan, where China's last year flew more sorties than ever before. It's North Korea, on pace to shatter prior records, the number of missiles that they are testing.
And so incompetent assholes to run our fucking business in the fucking ground.
We got time to embrace
incompetent assholes.
To embrace socialism at the National Defense University, to do mandatory pronoun training.
Again, this is the most capable, the most combat credible force in the world. It has been, and it will be so going forward.
Now,
this budget helps us to do that.
How do we embrace socialism?
The fact that you are embarrassed by your country?
No. I'm embarrassed by your leadership. I'm not embarrassed for my country. I wish you were losing to China. You know what? That's so disgraceful that you would sit here and conflate your failures with the failures of the uniformed service members. You guys said that Russia would overrun Ukraine in 36 days. You said that the Taliban would be kept at bay for months. You totally blew those calls. And maybe we would be better at them if the National Defense University actually worked a little more on strategy and a little less on folkism.
Has it occurred to you that Russia has not overrun Ukraine because of what we've done and our allies have done?
But that was baked into your flawed assessment. That was baked into your flawed assessment. And so, I saw that the Obama administration tried to destroy our military by starving it of resources, and it seems the Biden administration is trying to destroy our military by force-feeding it wokeism. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. Mr. Keating, Madam Speaker, I yield.
So like I said again, until we realize how much we're being played by the elite assholes in their game of make-believe, understand, faith, hope. It's just a game being played and ran by elite assholes, and it's just 5 fucked up words. 5 words. It keeps so many from thinking for themselves. So many stuck on stupid, willing participants in their own slavery. Lazy as motherfucker. Because not using common sense. The mind that matters, that is the creator within the creation. It's just that you so fucking stuck on fucking stupid because you was taught to be stupid. You'll never know the truth that's already ready within you for you to know better, to do better. Wow. how fucking dumb and stupid and gullible we are. I'm Mr. Legs.